amendments that we're happy to accept as well. Colleagues, SB 519 will decriminalize the possession and personal use of psilocybin, psilocin, MDMA, LSD, DMT, mescaline, ibogaine, only for people who are 21 and older. The bill has no application to anyone under the age of 21, and we modeled that structure over the approach to cannabis. So what do we mean by decriminalize? There's been some questions, and people sometimes hear the word, and they don't know exactly what it means. When we say decriminalize, what we mean is that under SB 519, we will no longer arrest people and incarcerate them for the simple personal possession of psychedelics for personal or shared use. So that's really the question here. Do we believe that we should be arresting someone because they possess psychedelics for personal use? I don't think we should. Frankly, I think most people don't think we should be doing that. The bill does not decriminalize the sale of psychedelics. That will continue to be a crime. To promote safer use, the bill also decriminalizes drug testing kits so that people can actually swab and test their psychedelics to confirm that they are not contaminated. That is something we should be promoting for all drug use, particularly with the fentanyl epidemic in terms of meth and heroin that's being laced. But here, we're specifically decriminalizing it for psychedelics. SB 519 also convenes an expert working group under the Department of Public Health to develop recommendations regarding potential future strategies around safe use, etc., of psychedelics. Since there's been a lot of misinformation about this bill, and I suspect you will hear some of that in the public comment today, frankly, some outrageous misrepresentations around the bill. Just to clarify, the bill does not decriminalize the sale of psychedelics. It does not decriminalize in any way giving or sharing or otherwise providing psychedelics to anyone under 21. All of that will remain illegal. What SB 519 does is ensure that people have access without being a criminal to substances that are literally fixing people's brains, literally ending mental health and addiction diagnoses, not only improving conditions, but according to recent scientific studies, for example, around MDMA, making it so that people with PTSD no longer have a PTSD diagnosis. That someone addicted to heroin is no longer addicted to heroin. Not just improving, that too, but situations where people's lives are literally transformed because of these substances. For far too long, the only regulations that we've had of these substances is to say, if you possess it and use it, you're a criminal and you might get arrested and put in prison. Rather than properly even trying to differentiate between different drug substances, we just treat everything as somehow morally terrible. Now, I'm of the view that the war on drugs in general has been a failure. We've been trying to arrest our way out of drug use and addiction for 50 years, and it hasn't improved anything whatsoever. People are still using, people are still getting addicted, not to psychedelics, because these are generally not addictive, but to other drugs. And all we've done is fill up our prison with drug crimes. And we're not safer, and we've just spent a whole lot of money. The failed war on drugs has been a huge burden on tax revenues. It's torn communities apart. It has dramatically harmed Black and brown communities, and it has done nothing to make communities safer or to make people safer if they are using drugs. In fact, it's made us less safe because people use in the shadows. They know that they're committing a crime, and so they don't get information and education that could let them be safer. It's time that we stop our failed policy of mass incarceration and acknowledge that not every substance is harmful. Just because 100 or 50 years ago, the federal government declared that a particular substance is somehow bad and thus illegal. The substances in this bill have been found not just by politicians or advocates, but by scientists, by scientific studies, including in the New England Journal of Medicine, studies affiliated with the FDA, that a myriad of mental health issues, including anxiety, addiction, depression, insomnia, eating disorders, PTSD, smoking, can be dramatically improved with psychedelic therapy. Veterans, and many of you have probably, I hope, met or heard from our veterans. Our sponsoring organizations are two organizations of combat veterans who work with veterans who have gone to war for our country and been harmed as a result and come back with PTSD, with severe depression, with other disorders, and traditional treatment hasn't worked. And psychedelic therapy has allowed them to get their lives back. And yet we forced them to go to Peru or Mexico or to leave the country to get this treatment after they fought for our country because we made it illegal here. 18 veterans commit suicide every single day in this country. 18 every day commit suicide. And we have an opportunity to help them, among other, not just veterans, among others, actually turn their lives around. These impacts have been found both in a clinical setting, but also in non-clinical settings. And it's time we acknowledge the benefits of these substances, even outside of a clinical setting. I want to be clear, and I said this earlier, that psychedelics are overwhelmingly not addictive, and people can use them safely, but it's harder to use them safely if people are criminalized for doing so. Colleagues, you may have seen that last November, Oregon voters voted to decriminalize not just psychedelics, but possession of all drugs, every single one of them. The Maine House of Representatives, sometimes we think we have to go to the voters for these things. The Maine House of Representatives just voted to decriminalize the possession of all drugs a week or two ago. What we're proposing, even though I support those efforts, and I hope California gets there, in this bill, we're proposing a much narrower subset of those steps. We know that Portugal decriminalized possession. And there were all sorts of gloom and doom predictions about what would happen in Portugal. What happened in Portugal? Overdose deaths went down. HIV infections went down significantly because they started to treat drugs as what it is. It's a health issue, not a criminal issue. I know that there is a lot of fear that gets spread about psychedelics. People, go back to the 1960s. It's like the psychedelic equivalent of reefer madness, that this is going to do all sorts of horrible things. And that is just not true. Any substance can be misused. I could go home tonight and take too many sleeping pills and harm myself. You could take too much cough syrup and harm yourself. You can take too many Tylenol and harm yourself. Any substance in the world can be misused. And that's why we want to get people help and education instead of arresting them. But we need to be clear that prohibition doesn't work. It didn't work with alcohol, hasn't worked in the war on drugs, and specifically it doesn't work with psychedelics. So colleagues, I ask for the opportunity to continue to move this bill forward, take a health-based approach to this important issue. With me today to testify are Jesse Gould, who is the president and founder of the Heroic Hearts Project, a combat veterans organization and a co-sponsor of SB 519, and Dr. Robert Grant, a professor of medicine at UCSF. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You may proceed at the mic.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jesse Gould, and I'm the founder of Heroic Hearts Project, which is co-sponsor of California Bill SB 519. I could have never imagined being in this position today advocating for psychedelic medicine, but I've always followed my heart and intuition, and that has consistently led me on a life of service. Before the military, I was in finance on Wall Street, but I decided to enlist in the Army to give back and serve this great country. I found community and purpose as an airborne ranger, and I developed as a leader as a non-commissioned officer over 3 combat deployments. I made a pledge to leave no soldier behind. I first found psychedelic medicines out of necessity. Having tried all that was offered to me by military medicine, I was barely holding on. I turned to psychedelics as a last-ditch effort to survive. And fortunately, it worked amazingly well. Heroic Hearts Project was created to educate and connect my fellow veterans to these effective options. This was nearly 4.5 years ago, and since then, I've been on the front lines of the veteran suicide epidemic that Senator Wiener recently mentioned. Nearly every day, my team receives messages from veterans who have fallen through the cracks of the system, or from their families who are exhausted and desperate because of the lack of options. It is hard to put into words how much this crisis has decimated the military community, my community. The weight of it all has fallen on individuals and private organizations, many of which are at a breaking point. Just last month, another friend of mine, a veteran, took his own life. He was doing his best to save others, but it came at the expense of his own mental health. Veterans should not have to face this alone and in the shadows, but they are doing that right now. The criminality has not affected their ability to go there. They are either having to go to other countries or forming their own groups purely to save their own lives out of veteran support. Psychedelics have and will continue to save veteran lives. Just recently, the director of the National Institute of Health praised psychedelics' potential as a therapeutic treatment, a sentiment that has been echoed by the FDA as well as prominent universities like Johns Hopkins. But veterans are dying today, right now. SB 519 is a compassionate step forward and provides measured hope in a time frame of months, not years, to those that are barely holding on right now. I would like to thank the Assembly for your time and for an aye vote on SB 519. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to testify in support?
I believe Dr. Grant is on the phone. He's our other lead witness.
Okay. AT&T operator, if we can have Mr. Skiles on the phone.
Dr. Grant.
Oh, he is available.
Yes, yeah, we thought he was with patients, but now apparently he's available.
Okay, Dr. Grant would be good.
Yeah. Thank you for your flexibility, by the way.
AT&T operator, we need to speak to Dr. Robert Grant if he's on the line.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Dr. Robert Grant.
Yes, we can. Please proceed.
Oh, okay. Thank you for the invitation to speak on behalf of Senate Bill 519. Psychedelic therapies have emerged as an extremely promising approach to a variety of mental illnesses, including PTSD, depression, substance use disorders. These medicines are being evaluated intensively in clinical studies and are increasingly becoming available for people's use for conditions including PTSD, depression, substance use disorders. The University of California, San Francisco is launching a psychedelic medicine research center in August of this year under the leadership of a new faculty recruit, Robin Carhart-Harris, who has published extensively on how these medications have beneficial effects on the brain. I think it's appropriate for these medicines to become more readily available in populations, and certainly people should not be incarcerated for seeking a healing path with these medications. So thank you for the opportunity to talk on behalf of this bill.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anybody else in the room that would like to speak in support of this bill?
Diane Goldstein, Executive Director, Law Enforcement Action Partnership, representing over 5,000 current, former, and retired criminal justice professionals.
Mr. Chair and members, Anthony Molina on behalf of Decriminalize Nature in support, and I've also been asked to express support on behalf of the San Francisco Public Defender's Office, who are not able to attend today. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anybody that would like to speak in support that is outside? Hearing none. AT&T operator, if we could open the lines for people who would like to speak in support of this measure, please state your name and your organization and your position. We'd appreciate it.
To speak in support of SB 519, please press 1 then 0 on your telephone keypad. comment will come from the line of 913. Please go ahead.
This is Sarah Kim from TV Next. I strongly oppose SB 519.
Thank you. Again, these are
Next comment
supposed
is
to be calls in support of. Just as a reminder, those online, these are supposed to be testimonies in support of the measure. Thank you.
our next comment is from line 792. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. This is Margot George on behalf of the California Public Defenders Association in support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go to line 843. Please go ahead.
Yes, this is Matty Hyatt from California Civil Liberties Advocacy, also in support.
Thank you.
Next comment is from 934. Please go ahead.
Joshua Dubé, representing the California Attorneys for Criminal Justice, in support.
Thank you.
Next comment is from line 844. Please go ahead.
Greetings, James McConkey, representing Decriminalize Nature San Francisco and the Psychedelic Small Business Association, as well as owner of the Hate Street Shroom Shop, in complete support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next comment is from line 918. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair and Committee. This is Gregory Fidel with Initiate Justice, speaking in strong support of SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go to line 907. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. Tamar Tokat on behalf of the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 914. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Paul Breed from San Francisco, speaking in support of SB 519. Thank you, Senator Warner.
Thank you.
Next line is 933. Please go ahead.
This is Zach Skiles, the Veterans Clinic Director at UC Berkeley's Center for Psychedelic Science, strongly supporting SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next comment is from 112. Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Michael Carrillo, and as a U.S. Army veteran, I strongly support SB 519. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next comment is from 931. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Juliana Mercer, 16-year Marine Corps veteran, California native, and supporter of Heroic Hearts Project. I support SB 519. I'd also additionally like to register the support of New Approach Advocacy for the record.
Thank you.
Our next comment is from 935. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jorge Kramer, and I'm calling from Los Angeles. I am strongly in support of SB 519. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Line 927. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon. This is Ismail Ali, Acting Policy Director at and calling on behalf of the nonprofit research and educational organization, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, calling in strong support of SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 925. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Hamley Chan, 100% disabled veteran, San Francisco Veterans Commissioner, in highly support of this bill.
Thank you.
Line 910. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Dr. Larry Norris. I'm here on behalf of the nonprofit Entheogenic Research, Integration, and Education in support of decriminalizing sacred plants and fungi and strongly support SB 519. Thank you.
Line 862. Please go ahead. Line 862. Your line is open.
Christina Alvarado, representing the West Sacramento Psychedelic Community, we're in strong support at SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next comment is from 923. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Dr. Regina Moore, co-founder of the Psychedelic Pharmacists Association and co-founder of the Psychedelic Small Business Association, voicing strong support for SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 942, please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Barry Alexander with Decriminalize Nature in San Francisco, and I'm in full support of SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 939, please go ahead.
Dr. Stefan Kasian, co-founder of the Mycology Consciousness Institute, Intertribal Medicine Ambassador, and Transpersonal Chair inside the APA, American Psychological Association, in strong support of this.
Line 945, please go ahead.
My name is Dr. Alia Lilienstein. I'm a board-certified family medicine physician and a medical researcher from Berkeley. I'm medical director for the nonprofit, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. I strongly support Senate Bill 519 because legalization of psychedelics is an important health and safety issue.
The next comment is from 951, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jill Lee, and I'm in strong opposition of SB 519. It's a public safety issue. And also, I wanted to share one quote from Thomas Sowell with the Senator Nancy Skinner. Give me 1 second, let me read it. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. It's basically saying that politicians are making things worse, and before they can make things better. It's right here. Let me share it and addressing to committee member Senator Nancy Skinner. There's nothing so good that politicians cannot make it bad, and nothing so bad that politicians can't make it worse. Crime is bad, but politicians have made it worse by going easy on criminals. Nancy Skinner, you're like a failure.
Okay, let's go on to the next caller.
We have no additional comments in queue at this time.
Thank you. Now, we're going to hear, we just did support, we're going to do opposition now. Witnesses in opposition, Frank Lee, the California Coalition Against Drugs, by phone, and John Lovell, California Narcotics. I don't see Mr. Lovell.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Who is this?
Yeah, this is John Lovell.
Hi, John. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Yes. First of all, let me set the record straight on one thing. The California Narcotic Officers Association is not about incarcerating people for possession. In fact, under California law now, with Proposition 36, with a whole host of drug court interventions and treatment, that's a good pathway for possession issues. But I want to just talk about two issues very quickly. The first deals with LSD. The problem with the challenge with LSD is that it is married to flashbacks, and that's a constant. I'll tell you one quick family story. A family member of mine, when she was 18, was given LSD surreptitiously. She wasn't aware of it, and she wound up being hospitalized. And then, for a number of years, she had flashbacks. And before this bill was heard, I actually called her and I said, "When was your last flashback?" And she said to me, "John, I still get them. I don't get them as often, but I still get them." And flashbacks are not just one family narration. Today, I actually Googled flashbacks caused by LSD, and I got over 200,000 entries on the internet. And we believe it's irresponsible to put something out there that, in effect, is a trip people can have for the rest of their lives. The other issue we're concerned about is the social sharing issue. We are very fearful that the unintended consequence of that will actually be to increase overdose fatalities. Over in the Senate earlier this year, there was a bill dealing with opioid fatalities or fentanyl fatalities. There were 100 parents who came to testify about their children who had died. None of their children were drug users. They needed a pill for something, and it turned out to be wrong, and the person died. We think that the social sharing issue creates real potential for death, unintended, but we think that's what's going to happen. And we're also very, very concerned about just the unfettered providing of LSD, when the reality is that LSD comes with flashbacks. For that reason, we are opposed to the bill based on those provisions in the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Okay, Frank Lee from California Coalition Against Drugs. Even though ketamine may be taken off from the list on SB 519, there are still many dangerous illegal drugs included in the bill. If there are concrete scientific findings substantiating that these drug benefits outweigh the possible harm, FDA should have already removed them from the controlled substance list. The fact that they have not says it all. The proponent says that people cannot wait for FDA to approve these drugs and have to take them now. But does he know better than the FDA leaders do? Or should we follow the FDA guidelines? In addition, the proponent did not come up with any statistics to prove that psychedelics can really help people to avoid hearing. Thus, this is not a valid upon, and the fact that the leaders of World War II Flying Tigers were protesting in San Francisco vehemently against the bill last Friday, together with over 100 people, reflects that the statement, "Veterans welcome the bill," is a myth. It is also misleading to say that these drugs are not for sale. The bill actually specifies that a commission be established to regulate the drugs. The buying and selling of them should be naturally included in the work of the commission. SB 519 also authorizes the social sharing of the drugs, effectively giving the drug dealers a built-in defense. It also keeps the door wide open for eventual opening of frivolous public consumption outlets for these drugs. Given the serious painful effects of SB 519, citizens have no room to compromise, but to outright reject the whole bill and ask the legislators to do the same for the betterment of our society, especially our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, are there anyone in the room in opposition? Name and organization. You may come to the mic.
Yes, this is Greg Burt from the California Family Council in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sherman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Ryan Sherman with the Riverside Sheriff Association. We'd like to convey our appreciation to the author for removing ketamine. Unfortunately, we remain opposed to the bill at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw somebody come in. Are there any witnesses that are in the outside in the? No. Seeing none, are there any witnesses on the floor? I mean, on the phone. They may now speak in opposition to SB 519.
To speak in opposition of SB 519, please press 1 then 0 on your telephone keypad.
Name and organization only.
Our first comment will come from the line of 938. Please go ahead.
Rochelle Connor, Concerned Women for America. We strongly oppose this as outlined in the letter of opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 952, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chair and members. Ursula Kidos on behalf of the City of Beverly Hills in opposition. Thank you.
Next, we have line 959. Please go ahead.
My name is Jenny Shute of Bakersfield, California, wife of a combat Vietnam veteran, and we're both strongly opposed to SB 519.
Thank you.
Line 884. Your line is open.
My name is Teresa Duque with the Francisco Community Empowerment Center. We have like 400 members, and we all in oppose of this bill.
Thank you.
Line 956, please go ahead.
This is Mary Lee Schreider, Director of Right to Life of Kern County, in strong opposition.
Thank you.
Line 902, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Usha Muchler on behalf of the California State Sheriff's Association in opposition to Senate Bill 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 789. Line 789, please go ahead.
Next.
And line 937, your line is open.
Penny Harrington calling from San Diego County, strongly opposed.
Thank you.
Line 153, your line is open.
Stephanie Lambert with Crime Victims United, and we strongly oppose.
Thank you.
Line 443, your line is open.
Oh, hello, is that me? Hi, my name is Leanna Louie. I am a U.S. Army veteran, and not only that, I actually worked in the pharmacy for 5 years in the U.S. Army and 3 years in state pharmacy. My name is Leanna Louie. I have 352 members of United We Stand. Most of my members do not speak English.
Line 567, please go ahead.
Hello, this is Office Choice.
Yes.
In Sacramento, I'm opposed to SB 519.
Thank you, sir.
Line 811, please go ahead.
Hello?
Yes. Name and organization.
11? Is it my turn?
Yes. Your name and organization, please.
Okay, my name is Catherine Tikha Kem. I come from Sacramento County, and I strongly oppose SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 824, please go ahead.
Hello.
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 Your name
Can
and
you hear me?
Yes. Your name and organization, please.
This is Connie Yee from Sacramento. I'm strongly opposed the bill SB 519.
Thank you.
Line 852, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Mena Young. I'm from Business and Housing Network and in strong opposition to SB 519.
Thank you.
Line 866, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Michelle Wagner from Placer County. I'm a mom of 3 adult children who works with marriages and families, and I'm in strong opposition to SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 867, please go ahead.
This is Dr. Judy Hsu, board certified physician in internal medicine, in strong opposition to SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 860, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Name and organization. Your name and organization.
Hello.
Hello. What's your name? They may not be.
Is that my turn?
Yes, it's your turn. What's your name?
I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lisa, San Francisco voter. Strongly opposed on SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Line 869, please go ahead.
Hello, this is Lindsay Carlson. I'm a member of Witness to Life, Kern County, and I strongly oppose Senate Bill 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 913, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Sarah Kim. I'm a founder of a traditional biblical value for next generation, representing thousands of Asian Americans in strong opposition of SB 519.
Thank you.
Line 917, please go ahead.
Hi, this is Tony Rosales with Capital Resource Institute in opposition to SB 519.
Thank you.
Line 921, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Tina San Camaro. I lived in San Francisco for many years, mother of 2 sons. I'm a community safety advocate and a union leader. I'm strongly opposed SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 922, please go ahead.
Chair members, Jonathan Feldman with the California Police Chiefs Association in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 924, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jeannie. I'm from Sacramento. I strongly oppose SB 519.
Thank you.
Line 932, please go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Robert Lowe from San Francisco. I strongly oppose 519.
Line 944, please go ahead.
Mr. Chair and members, my name is Libby Clark and I reside in Los Angeles. I'm a grad student in mental health counselling and I'm calling in strong support of 519. I've been routed into the section in error. The mental health field desperately needs solutions and the clinical trials.
Operator, next caller.
Line 960, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Wendy Ann. I'm representing over 1,200 Asian American members, and we strongly oppose SB 519. Thank you.
Line 961, please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Maya Long from Alameda County. Comparing opioid usage and psychedelics are not comparable. Many people use psychedelics to treat their own mental health disorders and for wellness reasons.
Name and
I strongly
organization.
support.
Line 962, your line is open.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Yan. I'm a resident of San Francisco, and I'm also an organizer for Vote and Change San Fran with 700 people. I'm calling in to strongly oppose SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Line 968, please go ahead. Line 968, please go ahead. Your line is open. Line 970, please go ahead. Your line is open.
Yes, this is you from Sacramento. I strongly oppose SB 519. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, we have no further callers in queue.
Thank you very much. Then we'll bring it back to committee members. Mr. Sitiato will be first, then Ms. Wicks.
Thank you very much. So, one of my questions is, if the sale of these substances is illegal, how are these people going to come into possession of them without participating in an illegal transaction?
Well, people will obtain the substances, frankly, the same way that they do now. It is buying a drug is not illegal. It's the possession and the use, and then the selling is a separate crime. So I want to be clear. This is not like a global change everything on psychedelics. This is addressing one piece, that the possession for personal use will no longer be criminalized in California, but people will still have to find a way to get the drug.
Right. I have a lot of concerns with this. You're familiar with a lot of the depression drugs that are out there to help people that suffer from depression, correct?
Not all of them, but yes, I'm generally.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. However, they're always administered under the well, they need to be administered under the watchful eyes of physicians, because some people react one way to those, and some people react in a completely different way. And that other way is to actually exacerbate their situation, and they wind up committing suicide when they weren't necessarily suicidal. So these type of psychedelic drugs. Anyway, the ones that operate on your psyche have different effects on different people, and we don't know what those effects are. So, I have every sympathy in the world for, especially our veterans who have PTSD, and I am all for anything that can help them to deal with that. I'm okay with. However, it has to be done in a clinical setting. It has to be done under the watchful eye of a physician, because absent that, what we're doing is opening the door to a lot of people that have the same issues with depression drugs, where they can be affected in entirely different ways. And I have heard from veterans who are saying that, hey, you know what, these drugs ruined my friend's life and he killed himself. So, how do you control that if you're just going to open it up and say, hey, if you just have it, good, no big deals?
Well, thank you for that question. It's something I really do appreciate it. And frankly, the reason we're in that situation is because of the war on drugs. Because instead of taking a rational, health-based approach to drugs, including psychedelics, because we knew in the 1960s, this is not new information. There's a lot more science than there was, but we knew in the 1960s, and I don't care what Mr. Lovell Googled, if you Google LSD health benefits, you're going to get probably more than 200,000 hits. We knew in the 1960s that these drugs could be hugely beneficial to people's health and well-being, and then the federal government came in and shut everything down and rescheduled all the drugs and said you're a criminal if you possess them. And so we have lost 50 years. And California then followed suit, like we were mass incarceration happy in the 80s and 90s and criminalized everything. And so that is because of the war on drugs that we're in this situation, that people don't have the information they need, that people feel like they need to use it in the shadows, which makes it more likely that people might use it in the wrong dosage or in the wrong way. I want to be clear. I would love it if the FDA actually got around to rescheduling these. Ketamine has been rescheduled. One of the reasons that we were open, I didn't want to, but I heard what people were saying. One of the reasons we took it out is that if you have severe depression, and ketamine is arguably one of the biggest breakthroughs in depression treatment in 100 years, you can go to a doctor and get an infusion of ketamine. You can't do that right now with any of these other drugs. A doctor will lose his license if he or she tries to get this to you. And so I want the FDA to do it. I don't know if the FDA will ever get around to it, or if it's going to be in 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 years. But what I do know is that people are hurting and dying now. I think when you look at the number of veterans who are committing suicide because of untreated mental health issues, I'm willing to bet my lunch that dwarfs anyone who's committing suicide because they took a psychedelic. That is not an epidemic. The epidemic is untreated mental health and addiction, like the 700 people who died last year in my community in San Francisco of overdoses because they're addicted to heroin or fentanyl or meth, and it's illegal for them to access this treatment. So I hope the FDA gets around to it. But in my community, we were also losing thousands of people in the 1980s from AIDS, and it was illegal to use cannabis, even though cannabis could keep people healthier and alleviate their symptoms. And even today, the number of senior citizens who are using cannabis for their arthritis, conservative Republican seniors who are using cannabis for their arthritis, and the FDA has never rescheduled it. Doctors can lose their license if they prescribe it. So I want them to do that, but I know that people are hurting now, and I want to help them.
I understand that. And the ketamine, I want to thank you for taking that off the list. Ketamine is the date rape. I just dealt with a constituent who was in the sad circumstance of having that happen to them, and they couldn't get the hospital to give them the test to let them know that that's what happened. So thank you for taking that off the list, because that was a real rally killer when I was looking at this, as if there weren't enough of the other ones. When I talk to the Highway Patrol, you know what the number is of highway incidents that are on the highways right now? 70% of the people that are involved in an incident on the highway are under some kind of influence of some kind of drug. And so I don't see how this helps that out any. And I also don't understand how we're going to keep these out of the hands of our under 21 population, because this will be just like beer. You just go get the 21-year-old to give you this stuff. And even though it's illegal, they're still going to get it. They're going to have access to it, because we're going to create a market for it so that the illegal drug trade will be able to supply them all these people that want this, because they're not all with PTSD. Some of them just want it for recreational use. There was a lot of that in the 60s. And so I'm not sure how we're going to control all of that. And on top of that, keep our young kids from taking that one pill of ecstasy that just happens to be laced with fentanyl. Because that's what those drug dealers are doing these days, is they're lacing everything with fentanyl because they want their drug to have an extra kick so that people will continue to buy it. So I think this is one of those things where you're putting the cart before the horse. I think if the FDA finds that this is a drug or these drugs are beneficial for a certain population, then I think that needs to be regulated. Unregulating it is not going to solve the problem. So I appreciate that you brought the bill. Those are my concerns.
I appreciate it. And if I might say, all of the bad things that you just said, and I agree, driving under the influence is bad, giving drugs to kids is bad. That is all happening now. And this bill doesn't change that, but that is all happening now. And the question is, if we're going to continue to say that arresting people is going to prevent that, clearly it doesn't, because 50 years later, it's all still happening. And I do just want to say, as someone who lost my aunt to a drunk driver, if we got the data from CHP in terms of what they're under the influence of, I'm going to bet my lunch again that is overwhelmingly alcohol.
Alcohol, marijuana.
Alcohol, which, by the way,
heroin.
If you want to talk about a date rape drug, it's not psychedelics, it's not ketamine, it's alcohol.
No, it's ketamine.
All right. Ms. Wicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank the author for bringing this bill forward. I think it's a very critical conversation. We need to decriminalize possession of these substances for personal use. I do believe that they can offer therapeutic value for people. I agree with your comments 100%. We freely drink alcohol, and one could say that that's actually a much worse substance than the substances we're talking about here in this bill. And the other piece of the equation here is that who's actually getting arrested for possession? It's kids of color and people of color, more so than white families and white kids and folks who are using this. So we have to have a real conversation about this war on drugs and what it actually means and its impact on people's lives. So I will move the bill if it hasn't been moved already. I will support the bill, and I'd love to be added as a co-author.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lackey?
Yes, sir. I'm not going to belabor the points of objection that I have to this particular measure. I know that your intentions are surprisingly noble, but I really take an objection because I've seen the hurtful impacts of these particular drugs. And they are very, very hurtful, and they're very threatening in many ways to the individuals themselves and maybe even others. And I think by legalizing this substance, those tragedies are going to increase. So that's really where I'm coming from, and I think you know that, so I'm not going to be insulting or be nasty. I just will tell you that I think that it's misguided because I've seen the other side of these drugs, and it's very, very heartbreaking. That's all I got.
Thank you. Mr. Quirk?
So I'm already a co-author, thank you. Look, as so eloquently stated by the author, war on drugs hasn't worked. By making these things totally illegal, it's much easier, the people who are selling them, to sell them to minors. We ought to be legalizing possession, period. How does it help people to be arrested, particularly when it's predominantly black and brown people who are disadvantaged by this? When I went to school at Columbia, all the kids who tried LSD and cannabis, etc., no one was ever arrested for anything. And, a half mile away in Harlem, black and brown people were being arrested all the time. We have to stop this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions? You may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, you weren't here earlier. I just want to express my thanks to you and to the committee for working with us and for preparing a very thorough analysis. To my Republican colleague, to both of you, I know we all come from a good place on this, and I appreciate you all are very open and candid, and I understand we have a disagreement on this, and I honor that disagreement. But colleagues, I think this is a bill that is long overdue, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
And I want to thank you too for taking committee recommendations, especially join Mr. Ciarto in taking out ketamine. I know what you're trying to do, and that would have just confused what you ultimately want to get accomplished. With that, the chair's recommending an aye. Call the roll.
The bill's been properly moved and seconded on SB 519 by Senator Wiener. The motion is do pass as amended to the Health Committee. Jones Sawyer.
Aye.
Jones Sawyer, aye. Lackey. Lackey, no. Bauer, Kahan. Lee. Lee, aye. Quirk.
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago. Santiago, aye. Sayarto.
No.
Sayarto, no. Wicks.
Measures on call needs one more.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Much appreciated.
Thank you. Senator Skinner, items number 13, bill number SB 16, item number 14, SB 81, and it's my understanding you would like to start with SB 81.